we're going to reach a point where we can figure out every year of human existence how to live a year longer.
Science is ever evolving. That's the whole point and definition of science. New information presents itself, new ways of life present themselves.
It's irresponsible to put it all on the doctors. I think the individual has to take accountability.
The rate of suicide amongst medical professionals is the highest out of most professions.
Wow.
Why are some doctors so resistant to the change?
Ozempic is a peptide. A peptide is a compound that our body makes naturally. Our gut is making GLP-1 peptide all the time. The problem that's occurred is we have this chronic Western worldwide deficiency of that signaling.
More doctors could also be forthright in saying, I actually don't know.
The rate of people getting Alzheimer's is going up, and it really shouldn't be that way. Back when I went to medical school, we were taught zero about health. You're only taught about how to diagnose a disease and what pill or surgery can fix that disease. The next generation of what's going to save humanity are...
What is the latest and greatest in longevity? What are we about to see that we haven't seen?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, actually, what's happening in the longevity space. And there's 2 or 3 things that I think people need to keep their eye on. And you know, like with anything in medicine, there's going to be a lot of misconceptions. There's going to be a lot of people selling things that don't really work. But I really believe there's 3 main themes in the longevity space that are going to make a massive difference in the next 5 to 8 years. Number 1, of course, is AI, right? And I think what we're seeing, Jason Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, someone asked him a few weeks ago in San Francisco, a student asked him, like, what are you most excited about with AI? And you think he'd say something about, you know, more chips and artificial general intelligence. He's like, the number 1 thing is how we can replicate human biology on a computer to such a high degree of precision that we can test millions of molecules on a computer.
Break this down for someone like me who's a kindergartner when it comes to AI.
Well,
I don't understand what
I've
it means.
heard even, like, I saw somebody the other day.
Well, you were planning your suits online on AI today. I saw he has this whole closet break.
The other, well, it can do so many things, but the other day somebody posted that they took their blood panels and they put it into AI and it said it caught things that the physicians may not have, like, not that just that they couldn't make the connections that the AI was able to make just by looking at his blood panels.
Is that what you mean?
That's just V1. I mean, V1 is... You have blood panels that you do all the time. You can just feed it into ChatGPT and it will find things and give you patterns that many doctors could possibly not, because they just don't have the time, they don't have the context and the vast degree of knowledge. But this is like 5 steps above that, to where, you know, our human body is incredibly complex at a cellular level. There's millions of processes going on every second in every cell. DNA being transcribed, proteins being made. Imagine replicating all of that machine in a computer. So when you do that, if there is a new peptide you want to try and you want to see how it affects like a liver cell, for example, that can be done in a computer versus a 10-year time period and billions of dollars to make a pharmaceutical and then test it and do randomized controlled trials and go through the FDA. And so I really believe, you know, Ray Kurzweil, he's a chief futurist at Google. He said that we're going to reach a point where we can figure out every year of human existence how to live a year longer. And when you do that, that's called longevity escape velocity. Now we have the potential to add many, many more productive years to our lives. And some people will get religious about that. You know, they're like, we have to all die. There's going to be societal implications. I feel like, you know, humanity always figures out a way. And this is coming during our lifetimes.
What's the most amazing case and story that you've seen? Because you've truly seen it all. What's something that like rocked your world where you were like, I'm on the right path?
I mean, I can start with my story because, you know,
I think it's relevant to tell your story. And first, for context for the audience, we had the pleasure of sitting down with you at a dinner with our mutual friend, Brian Johnson. Hello, Brian. And
the Don't Die Dinner.
Don't Die Dinner.
Great group of people. Really hit it off. And we were familiar with you through Next Health, which I'm sure many people are. But I don't think people realize the extensive background that you have in medicine and how many early accolades you have. Is it true you became a full-fledged doctor at the age of 21?
Yeah.
How common is that?
How's our vibes?
It's pretty uncommon. I was one of probably, like, at that time period, maybe 5 or 6 people in the country that became a doctor at 21. And I did my first surgical procedure at 21. I started off as a surgeon and I learned surgery. I did trauma surgery and general surgery for 10 years. And then I went to the Mayo Clinic to train in reconstructive surgery. And so, it was nice being young because I had time to have multiple careers in medicine, 3 to be exact. My first one was a general and trauma surgeon, my second one as a reconstructive surgeon, and then my third in the health optimization and longevity space. And that's kind of where my story starts.
What is the workload that it takes to become a doctor at 21? Like what did your days and nights look like when you were doing that?
I mean, it's just 24/7 learning, right? You're learning constantly. You're spending nights in the library. You are figuring out new ways to learn because you need to learn fast. You need to know a lot. I went to a really great medical school in Kansas City, Missouri, and all of us just kind of banded together and just studied our asses off, basically. I mean,
wait, I thought medical school is 6 years.
It's actually 8 years,
okay.
4 years of college and 4 years of med school. But this program I went to was a combined med school and college program where you went all summer and during all vacations and took a ridiculous course load to get it done in 6 years.
So how many, the average person that has finished college, that's bachelor's degree, how many courses on average compared to what you were taking?
I mean, we were taking by about double compared to what
When did you start doing this? Like, how old were you?
I was 15 when I went to this.
So were you just like a gifted student?
I mean, I don't know if I was gifted or just worked hard or a little bit of both, but I did very well in school. Yeah,
you were like the guy that was getting straight A's. I was cheating off your paper.
Probably.
Let's put it that way. So
I would have let you cheat.
I had a lot of little things I did. I'd put it up my skirt, the answers.
Oh. What's the old move when the teacher's like, when they look at you and you get caught, you're like, you didn't have that problem. Yeah. I had that problem.
You're like,
okay, no. And
I
really, the reason I asked this is because we do our research for these things, and we've interviewed people in your field before, but I just think that it's such a accolade to highlight how much you did so early, because I can only imagine what that workload looked like.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, but at the same time, I didn't know any different back then. I think, I was raised in a family where it was just, you just worked hard. You just worked hard and you worked a lot and you worked all the time. And I just carried that through med school. I saw the light later. I'm like, I'm killing myself here. And that was part of the problem. I got really sick after working really, really hard for 20 years. And, I was coming close to like knocking on death's door. I decided I have to make a change. And that's where 10 years ago, I changed my life,
Why were you knocking on death's door?
So I had multiple medical diagnoses, metabolic syndrome, number one. And that's kind of a combination of five factors that are problematic. That's also a root cause of many other diseases. And so I was at high risk for cardiac disease at a very young age. I was 40 years old and high risk of heart attack and stroke because I had really high uncontrolled blood pressure. And then the icing on top of the cake was I developed an autoimmune disease that started, you can kind of see like this side of my head, the skin is much thinner. This autoimmune disease was eating away at the skin of my scalp and also my skull bone.
Wow.
And it's called coupe de sabre, a very rare condition. No one knows what causes it, but it was pretty bad. And it was progressing rapidly to where I might have needed facial reconstruction.
I have a question that I've never gotten to ask on this show. So I'm fascinated with doctors and nurses because it's so opposite of my personality that I like to read books about it because I'm just fascinated. I could never do it.
She's deathly afraid of hospitals and surgery and needles.
Like I will literally take my shoes off, throw them away, and throw away my clothes after I go in a hospital.
Yeah.
Like I have a problem.
Yeah.
But I wonder about this all the time because when I read about it, it says that you guys are not getting any sleep. You're not getting any sunlight because you're underneath those fake artificial lights. You're constantly in cortisol. You're also around all different kinds of diseases and viruses and bacteria all day long, including staph.
Mm-hmm.
It feels to me like being a doctor and a nurse is, and correct me if I'm wrong, go off on me, unhealthy.
It is the most unhealthy profession. And the rate of suicide amongst medical professionals is the highest out of most professions. And that's because it's also very unhealthy for your mental state, to doing this. I remember there were weeks that would go by that I would never see the sun, like literally did not see sunlight for maybe a week or two in a row. And you work so hard for 48 hours in a row, and I would fall asleep driving on the way home in my car because I was just exhausted from that cortisol high being totally gone. And so that was that was the problem, right? Like I was working my butt off and super stressed all the time, not sleeping, eating garbage. And it's the unhealthiest professions. And you think, doctors and nurses should know how to stay healthy. In reality, we're not taught anything. This is the misconception that everyone has. The doctors and nurses are taught how to be healthy. Back when I went to medical school, we were taught zero about health. You're only taught about how to diagnose a disease and what pill or surgery can fix that disease.
This is so fascinating to me, though, because the cafeterias that you guys are eating in and the vending machines, and you guys are grabbing a Snickers in between like a surgery, it seems like. And then you have to do all this output and you're so tired. Like you said, you're falling asleep. What is the solve, though? Because we need doctors and nurses. Like, is the solve to prescribe more things that are natural? Like I read these books and I'm like, what do you do?
So here's a solve. And by the way, that kind of resonates with me because our hospital that I trained in had a McDonald's in the cafeteria. It's like so crazy now that I think about it. You just brought back that memory. So
Nature's Valley granola bar.
Like, man, my blood pressure is so high. I'll get a Big Mac.
Yeah, exactly. With a whole side of basically salt with a little bit of fry added to it, But okay, so here's the solve. The reason doctors and nurses and frankly the entire medical system is working so hard is because we have an incredible number of sick people. Almost everyone has some degree of illness that they seek out professional help from the Western medical system. And because of the massive prevalence of chronic disease, that system, our Western medical system, which is an incredible system, by the way, is totally overburdened, right? And so all the professionals are working 2 or 3 times the amount that they should be working because there just aren't enough people to take care of all the people. And that's because of the burden of chronic disease. Remember, our Western medical system was formed to take care of you if you got a life-threatening infection or you got hit, you got a traumatic event, right? That's why you went to the doctor. But then what happened is that system started treating chronic disease. And when you have 50% of people with chronic disease, there's just not enough bandwidth there. So the solve is to unburden that system with a new system that focuses on reversing chronic disease and maintaining optimal health, optimizing your health so you never get a chronic disease in the first place. Right? That's what I would submit.
You said you obviously started your career as a surgeon.
Yeah.
And we're living, in your words, maybe not the most healthy way. You yourself were unhealthy. When did you have this epiphany and when did you kind of flip it? Because obviously we've talked since then, and I think you're one of the most switched on MDs when it comes to this way of living that we all talk about and preach about. And when did that happen in your life?
Yeah, so I mean, it was on December 2nd, 2013. And I know that date because that's my son's birthday. And my son was born in the same hospital that I practiced surgery. And it was at 10 o'clock p.m. and he was born, we put him to bed, make sure everyone was okay. And I went down to the doctor's lounge where I normally sit in between surgeries, just take a little break, see if there's any food down there. I go down there and there's a medical journal and it has an article in it that says, basically it's an article about mortality rates. And it shows you like you have one disease at this level, this is your mortality rate, 2, this 3, this mortality rate. So if you took all of my biomarkers and the diseases that I had, this article said that I would have a 50% chance of dying by the time in the next 20 years. And remember, my son was just born like a few hours ago. So I'm like, I have a 50% chance of dying before this kid gets married, maybe graduates from college. Like that's unacceptable, right? And so that's when I had that flip in my mentality. But you can't just flip your mentality and all of a sudden everything's better. So I knew I needed to get healthy, but I needed to find out how to get healthy. And I got a concierge medical doctor then because I was like, I'm just going to pay $20,000 and see if they can get me healthy. And even like the best doctor in Beverly Hills had no idea how to get me healthy. They just knew how to prescribe more medications for me. So that's when I decided I got to get educated on the science of health. And I went out there on a journey to learn about the science of health.
It's so crazy hearing you say this, because we have these conversations on the show, and some of the critics, there's only about one or two of them.
You only have two, yeah.
The pushback is like, get a doctor on, someone with a medical degree. And you as a doctor were saying you yourself did not have the answers on how to be healthy and how to live this way. And I think this is why people are so confused, is like, you can do all the research and, and get all the information and get all the degrees, but if you're not taught the root cause of some of these issues and how to live in a healthy way, it's like a minefield trying to figure out what to do, what to eat, what not to eat, especially now. And so I just say this to point out that, like, if you, an MD who had the degree and the education, were confused, like, imagine the general person in the population. It's almost like they don't have a chance.
Additionally to what you say, like, it's irresponsible to put it all on the doctors. I think the individual has to take accountability into their own hands for their own health. Like, to just to say we need more doctors, like, you have to individually be like, okay, I'm going to take this into my own hands.
We're saying the same thing. My point is that sometimes people don't take agency, and they say, like, hey, don't have, like, we've had Callie on the show. Don't have Callie Means on the show. He's not an MD. Or like, don't have this person on the show. And I'm like, well, if the MDs aren't taught about these things, you have to go to the people that are educating themselves and learning and getting the information out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Callie's talking about he's not telling you how to perform an appendectomy, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously that's like, you're going to go to a doctor for that. He's talking about topics that even myself as a doctor with educated the Mayo Clinic and, medical degree from University of Kansas City, I did not have the knowledge in myself. I'm telling you, like, I did not know how to be healthy, right? And so why would someone come to me to get health advice? Like, there's really nothing there that I can really offer them. But then when I went out there and I learned the science of nutrition, like, I got my degree in nutrition, I learned the science of exercise and movement. I got a personal training certification. And then, but this is about 10 years ago, when Jeffrey Bland and Dr. Mark Hyman just started the Institute of Functional Medicine. A few practitioners were like, you got to go to the IFM. You'd really like it. And that's where I learned about root cause medicine, that every disease out there, like the thousands of diseases that we have names for, have like 8 root causes. And once I learned that and I figured out how to apply that to myself, I completely changed my health in like 8 months. It was so fast, so rapid. It's like a key piece of knowledge that they don't teach you at all in medical school.
What did you do? And what are the steps that you did that made all the difference?
Yeah, so I mean, it was a few different things, but it was mainly along, of course, diet, right? I always talk about the Pareto principle because there's so much information out there that is so confusing. And then you have people saying different things, and then, you get paralysis by overanalysis, right? And so the Pareto principle means that there's 20% of the information that makes 80% of the difference. And this was 100% true for me. For diet, I cut out all ultra-processed food, all fast food, all ultra-processed food. I stopped eating at restaurants. And for me, it didn't matter what I ate. Once I did that, it changed my life, And so then that was one thing. Secondly was I started becoming more active. Like, I didn't really start going to the gym. I just walked around more. I just started walking. That helped. And then on the function, and then sleeping too. I made sleep a priority. Now that's the basics, right? Everyone has to get that right. But then,
but they don't. A lot of people don't get that right. And it's, like I say all the time on this show, like, I don't want to hear people talking about fluoride in the water and seed oils and EMFs if they're obese and not going to the gym and not getting good sleep. It's like, let's do those things first, and then we can get to the fringe things you know what I mean? Like,
so true, man.
Cutting out the little like seed oils, or like turning off your Wi-Fi router or not, if you're eating ice cream and cookies and not going to the gym, it's not gonna change your life.
It's so funny that you say that, because I remember very vividly a patient coming to me and saying, what's my sauna cryo protocol? And I told him, like, what I think is optimal protocol. And then I started talking to him about his diet. And he's like, oh yeah, I just had some fast food and I smoked cigarettes. I'm like, there's no amount of sauna and cryo that's going to help reverse the damage you're doing from fast food and cigarettes.
What were the other things that you used in your toolbox?
Yeah. So then the other things that made a big difference was getting my hormones measured. And I was 42 at that time. I had the hormonal levels of an 80-year-old. It was really bad. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. And I didn't realize it. It's from years and years of accumulated stress and the damage that did. So I learned how to correct that. I also had massive leaky gut. And so my gut was basically massively causing inflammation throughout my entire body. So fixing my diet and then fixing my gut and reducing the amount of inflammation I had also made a huge, and that's what made my autoimmune disease go away, was fixing my gut, you know? And then I didn't realize this, but I was exposing myself to a massive amount of toxic burden as well. Just, you know, just number one, just being in a hospital. Believe it or not, a hospital is a very toxic environment.
Believe it.
Our kid just got he cut his forehead, unfortunately, and we had to take him to the hospital, and we both got so sick after.
He didn't take his pants off when he came in the house. He wore the same pants, and I said, "Do not touch my bed. Get out of here. I don't."
No, but I mean,
it's good advice.
Your hair in the.
Yeah.
But
it's good advice.
We haven't been
Did
that.
you hear what he said?
I heard it. I heard, Lauren. I heard. We haven't been that sick in years.
We got so. I have not. I don't think I've ever been that sick. How sick we got because he didn't take off his pants.
There you go.
Or maybe because you were in the hospital breathing the whatever's in the hospital.
But also, this is so weird. But someone told me when the doors open to the hospital, there's like a fan, like a breeze.
Yeah.
All of those particles are just going in your nose and mouth.
Yeah.
So they said, hold your breath when you're walking through. This hot tips.
Yeah, that's a hot tip. Hold your breath as you're walking into, because it's true. You know, when you open those doors, there's that massive rush of air.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were living basically in toxic soup.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, getting out of that, I basically stopped operating in the hospital. I said, I'm not going to go to the hospital anymore. I started doing surgery in surgical centers instead, which is less of a toxic environment. And, you know, it was just adding up little steps in my life, making little changes over the course of a year that you just do one or two things better every single day. You know, Atomic Habits by James Clear, 1% change every day adds up to a 3,600% improvement over the course of a year. That's what I did. Yeah.
What happened to your body, your psyche, and your wellness with all this? Did you lose weight? Did you feel better? Tell us how you felt.
So I was massively overweight by about 50 pounds. I lost about 40 of those pounds and completely, I was on 8 different medications. I went down to 2, and now I'm down to 1 for my blood pressure. And then I also lost my visceral fat. I lost, I was able to move better. I lost my joint pains I was having. I had severe back pain too, so I couldn't really move around. Back pain went away completely. So I just felt like a brand new human. And what was incredible is my patients that I was seeing for surgery consultations and getting them ready for surgery, they would ask me like, what are you doing, Dr. Shah? And I'd be like, oh, let me give you a list of like 5 or 6 things. I write them down. And they would come back to me in 3 months to be reevaluated for surgery. And they didn't need surgery anymore because they started following some of those things, you know? And so, I mean, this stuff works. It works incredibly well. And if anyone out there is suffering, they should really first try to see someone who can help them with their nutrition, sleep, hormones, exercise program, and their gut health and detoxifying their life. I feel like it's critical.
Even just getting sunlight in your eyes in the morning and walking with while the sun goes down makes such a big difference, especially to someone that's in a hospital all day long with the light. It's rough.
The light isn't it like the worst light in the hospital? It's like you feel the damage is doing your circadian rhythm when you're in the hospital, right? And
listen, even coming in the studio when I come in here and there's like I'm like,
the worst light's the DMV.
I know.
The worst light's the DMV, then the hospital.
You're right.
If the hospital wants an aesthetic makeover, I'm available.
So let's get into some particulars here. One thing I want to start with you on, which we don't talk about on this show a lot, but since you've dealt with it yourself personally, is blood pressure.
Yeah.
High blood pressure.
Yeah.
I assume the majority of people that have high blood pressure are living a stressful life and they don't know how to manage the stress. Some people are maybe just born with this. What did you do specifically to try to get your blood pressure under control?
I'm so glad you asked me this question because very few podcasts talk about blood pressure.
It's important though.
It's an incredibly important topic because in medicine, we actually call it the silent killer. And the reason is people go years and years and years without ever addressing high blood pressure. Why does that happen? Well, number one, you get your blood pressure measured once a year at the doctor. 90% of the time is the last person that was employed at the doctor's office that is doing your blood pressure who barely knows how to do a blood pressure correctly in the first place. So that blood pressure is either wrong or it's thrown out and they're like, let's see you again next year and let's see how it is next year. So people go an average of 8 years before being diagnosed with high blood pressure from when the blood pressure elevation first starts. And this is key. For every 10 points that your blood pressure is abnormal, meaning 130 over 80, every 10 points higher than that, you add 15% to your mortality.
Why do some people say 120 over?
120 over 70 is normal. And then as soon as you get to 130 over 80, you've added 15% to your mortality rate. And then for every 10 points after that, you continue to add to your mortality. So it's so important to get your blood pressure as close to 120 over 70 as possible. Instead, most of the time, patients don't get treated until they're about 150 systolic. And that's a problem. And so people live years and years and years with hypertension. And so I think it's a foundational biomarker. I'm a big believer of becoming the CEO of your own health and knowing what are some of the biomarkers that you need to keep control of yourself. Don't outsource them to your doctor. Like you said, take agency over your own health. Blood pressure is definitely one of them.
When would you consider like a statin or a medication versus all natural interventions?
Yeah.
And what are those natural interventions if somebody wants to? I'm assuming weight management. But
yeah. So first of all, what I would say is that you always want to do natural interventions first. So, most high blood pressure is caused by stress, but second is actually caused by metabolic disease. So the inability of our body to regulate our sugar levels, which has a lot to do with our diets and our exercise and our sleep. High blood pressure can also be directly related to a condition called sleep apnea. There's a lot of reasons people get high blood pressure, okay? So you always want to figure out what the reasons are, start working on those and mitigating those reasons, and then adding other natural forms of therapy that we know work. Things like sauna therapy, believe it or not. High intensity intermittent training can actually help reduce blood pressure over the long term. Getting your sleep right, all that stuff you're going to do over time. But it takes sometimes a year, 2 or 3, or even longer to get your blood pressure down.
So if somebody gets it measured and they're like, and then come back in a month or two, they're not going to see enough movement, even if they do the natural interventions.
Exactly, they're not.
I just want to clarify because I think again, even with anything with health and fitness and wellness, some people say I did it for a month or two and it didn't work, but
no, it takes a long time. Okay. But all of these interventions are ones that will not just help your blood pressure; they help you in your overall life. So I would recommend getting on a medication if you need it, and work towards getting off of it like I did, okay? Now, statins are for high cholesterol, but for blood pressure, there are new medications like ACE inhibitors and ARBs that are very safe, that actually protect your brain, your kidney, your heart from the damaging effects of high blood pressure while you're on them. So, look, I hate pushing medications on anybody, but I do believe there's a role for pharmaceuticals while you're getting a lifestyle in order.
What about if you have low blood pressure? Is it the same prescription for wellnessy things?
Totally. Okay, so low blood pressure is completely different than high blood pressure. But in general, people with low blood pressure should get worked up for why do they have low blood pressure? Are they anemic? Are their iron levels or ferritin levels low? Do they have chronic dehydration? There's a lot of different reasons people can have low blood pressure as well that are different from high blood pressure.
Someone who has something with their thyroid and they want to get off the medication. Gary Brecka came on. I'm sure you guys run in the same circles. You have very much similarities.
Yeah.
What is your ways to do it in a natural way to come off thyroid medicine?
So same thing. A lot of people have thyroid disease due to inflammation and metabolic disease, right? And so you want to get down to the root cause of why is my thyroid unhealthy, right? And it depends, once again, like blood pressure, if you have high thyroid or low thyroid, right? A hypofunctioning or hyperfunctioning thyroid. So while you're getting treated by your endocrinologist or your primary care for thyroid disease, start looking at what is the reason of that thyroid problem. Most of these diseases that we're talking about, they're diseases because you can diagnose them and prescribe a medication for them, but they all have their root in inflammation and metabolic disease for the most part. And so for a lot of the things that we're talking about, we use continuous glucose monitors on almost all of our patients. We love them. I think they're a game changer for almost everybody. 85% of Americans have some level of metabolic disease, and that's what leads to all of these other problems. And also inflammation. Inflammation is usually starts in your gut, and having your gut addressed to see if do you have inflammation going on in your gut, because 90% of our immune system lives in our gut. So that's where I would start for both of those.
The glucose monitor, how do you apply this?
She's scared of them.
Oh, you are?
Scared of them. I'm petrified.
What makes you scared of them?
I think that having a needle on the outside of your body feels really weird.
Yeah, no, totally get it. And that's a misconception that people have, that it's a needle. It's actually a filament. It's a tiny, tiny filament that is just like basically the size of a hair. And it goes into your arm. You don't even feel it. And it's a little patch, a little round patch that sits there for 2 weeks. And it's continually every 5 minutes feeding your blood glucose, your glucose level in your tissues to your iPhone through Bluetooth, and is telling you what the curve looks like.
And so what can you do with that information?
Yeah.
If you do that, I'll divorce you.
Oh, it's a filament.
No.
It's a filament.
Do not try to have sex with me for at least a month, maybe 2 months if you do that.
I don't know if I could go that long. That might hurt my stress levels.
Go down the street to a happy ending massage, because it ain't me.
Joking aside, what is that?
So what that does for you is that, like I mentioned, 85% plus of people have some level of metabolic disease. And that's because their body cannot handle the amount of glucose that's in our bloodstream. It helps you change your habits around your diet to where it keeps your glucose more regulated, so you don't have these glucose spikes. And when I say habits, I mean certain habits like snacking, right? What are the right snacks that don't cause a glucose spike? What if you start your meal with a fibrous vegetable rather than with bread or chips at the beginning? All of those things can help your glucose levels stay more normalized so you don't develop insulin resistance, which then leads to diabetes, et cetera, and all the other diseases we're talking about.
Can you invent something at Next Health that does the saliva test or the pee test?
But how are you going to get the constant information?
Because maybe every time you pee in the toilet deals with it.
I'm sure that's coming, for sure. I'm sure that's coming. But the CGM has been a game changer for patients. So it's something to really think about. I don't know if you've interviewed Callie's sister, Casey.
No, but open invite, Casey.
Yeah, she wrote an incredible book on continuous glucose monitors and metabolic disease. And I think, she's really driven the point home. It's called Good Energy. It's one of my favorite books. I recommend it to a lot of my patients as well. It really gets your head wrapped around the continuous glucose monitor, why it's necessary, and how metabolic disease really is the foundation of most other diseases, and how if we were to address that as a country, metabolic disease, it would completely unburden our Western medical system. Like we were talking about, why do doctors and nurses work so hard? Most of the work is created by metabolic disease.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you just prevented that, it would really help with their schedule and their craziness.
Exactly. Yeah. Less people would be sick.
Can we do a pee test? I will. Casey, I would love to have you come on to discuss more. I think I'm just scared of having a foreign object.
Outside of,
I get it.
Outside of the basics, which we've covered, and I'm sure you've covered on, being metabolically eating right, the gym. What are some practices or things that people could consider incorporating into their daily lives and routines that have made a big difference or impact on your life? We can go as far as cold hot therapies, peptides, whatever's out there. I think people are interested, what are you doing? What are you working with your patients on?
Yeah, for sure. So when I see a patient, we normally sit down, and the number one thing that we do first is, before we put any new health practices into place, we actually make them an expert in building routines. And so when you said routines, I was like, it doesn't matter what's in the routine. The key is to first be able to make a routine in your life, right? Most people live their life without any type of routine at all. And so if you can create even a 30-minute routine that focuses on your physical and your mental health every day, for me, it's a morning routine. It doesn't have to be a morning routine. Then you can build off of that over time. And so what I work on with my patients is figuring out what's going to work the best for them to address their needs and putting that into a routine for them. So you mentioned, first thing in the morning, getting up and going outside and looking at the sun, doing a little walk. That's part of almost all of my suggestions is getting outside and setting your circadian rhythm first thing in the morning by going outside and seeing that low level light sun. Then we add to that a practice of strength training. So I try to get people to do like a 5 to 8 minute strength workout every morning. Building muscle is key to your longevity and your health. Then after that, we add to their practice something to help them with their mental health. Maybe it's a visualization exercise, a gratitude exercise, some level of journaling. And so what I'm talking about here is doing what's called habit stacking. You do one thing and then you add another one to it and then another one to it. And you start small. Maybe you start out with a 3-minute strength training workout and then you build up to 8. You're naturally going to build up and you try to fit in, like I said, 45 minutes of this self-care every day. That is a true game changer, I think
it's a non-negotiable. I mean, people get mad at how, I don't know if I'm anal, I'm fluid with it, but like to not be able to go outside in the morning, it makes 20% of a difference.
Yeah.
Even with my kids, I'm like, come on, we're going outside. Like I don't want them waking up and staring at a screen. I just don't.
Right. That's key. And it's a great practice for all kids to get into.
I am all about better sleep. My mouth tape, my red light, my chimes, and also a little dream powder before I go to bed. That's why I'm so excited to share something that's made a real difference in my life. Beam's Dream Powder. Beam is a healthy nighttime blend packed with science-backed ingredients shown to improve sleep. So you can wake up refreshed and ready to take on the day. Whether that's tackling a full day of meetings or planning out your next big idea. So if you are someone who wakes up feeling groggy, I would recommend mouth taping. I would recommend getting red light in your room, removing your phone from your room. And then I would recommend some all natural ingredients. So Dream is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients. Like I said, so reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin. So it's a real great mixture of everything. It's designed to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling amazing. And unlike other sleep aids, there's a no next day grogginess, just great restful sleep. Beam has already improved over 17.5 million nights of sleep, helping people across the country wake up and feel their best. So here's the bottom line. Better sleep equals better business, and Beam is giving our listeners their best offer yet of up to 40% off. Try their best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off for a limited time. Go to shopbeam.com/skinny and use code skinny at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/skinny. Use code skinny for up to 40% off. Outwork the competition after you outrest them. Try Beam today.
Hello.
Katie, welcome to the show. We're talking about AG1 here, and I got you on speakerphone. What got you hooked on AG1 in the first place? Was it me? Was it Lauren? What was the thing?
Well, I mean, you guys are high performers, so anything that you're doing, I'm usually all bought in. I put fresh berries, I use chocolate protein, and then I use a big scoop of AG1. It's super efficient because it's all just in one smoothie right after I get home from the gym. And
any specific benefits you've noticed since making it part of your routine?
For sure. I have definitely more energy in the morning and I don't have to go back for a second cup of coffee, which is normally my go-to. And I'm definitely less bloated when I go to eat like a breakfast after I have my morning protein shake.
It's the best. Thank you, Katie. All right, guys, so if you're ready to level up your health with something simple and effective, check out AG1. I've been drinking it for years now, and that's why I'm always so excited to share this partnership with you all and everyone else that I can talk to. So go to drinkag1.com/skinny and save $20 when you subscribe. That's drinkag1.com/skinny. It's time to simplify your morning routine with AG1. If there's one topic that upsets me when I'm talking to people in my personal life, talking to people on this show, it's people that are stressed about their financial well-being. This is because this is all avoidable. So much stress in our life is driven by being financially illiterate, not knowing what to do with our money, not knowing how to save it, not knowing how to keep it. I know because I was one of those people for so long. This is why I'm so excited to talk about YNAB. YNAB, spelled YNAB, is a life-changing app that helps you do what you want with the money you have. You'll create a flexible plan for your money, and through the simple simple practice of giving every dollar a job, keeping you focused on the life that you want. Whether you want to cover your rent or your mortgage, fund a 401k without sacrificing dinners with friends, or take that long-awaited trip abroad to that holiday you've been dreaming of, YNAB can help you do it. With YNAB, you'll stop wondering where your money goes and start deciding where it'll take you instead. 92% of users report feeling less money stress since using YNAB. Like I said, stress is the silent killer. There's nothing worse than being stressed, running around, not knowing what your money's doing, not knowing how to keep it, not knowing how to save it. We work so hard to make it. Why not understand a little bit more about how to keep it? The average YNAB user saves nearly $600 in their first month and $6,000 in their first year. Imagine life with an extra $6,000 per year. Life is short. Spend it with YNAB. Of course, we have a special offer. It's an incredible offer. TSC Him and Her Show listeners can claim an exclusive 3-month free trial with no credit card required at www.ynab.com/skinny. Again, that's ynab.com/skinny.
You mentioned your sauna cold plunge protocol.
Yes.
What is your sauna cold plunge protocol?
So there's really good research that shows after doing a strength workout, if you do sauna, it increases the efficacy of the workout by 15 to 20%.
Wow.
Yeah. So after I go to the gym, I try to go straight into the sauna, and I'll do a 20 to 30 minute sauna session. There's some controversy about whether cold therapy blunts the effects of strength training, but hopefully the sauna is unblunting it. So then I'll do a 20 to 30 minute sauna session followed by 3 minutes in the cold plunge. And I have them both in my house, so I'm pretty lucky. If you don't have them both in your house, I think, doing like a cold morning shower is a really good form of cold therapy. And
we did those for years before we had a cold therapy or a cold plunge around. It was cold showers. When we lived in LA, it was just like cold shower every morning.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
The point is like you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the sauna actually is more important than cold therapy for most people because there's a ton of research behind it, lowering your risk of cardiac disease, lowering your risk of neurodegenerative disease, and even treating high blood pressure. So I think of sauna as kind of a foundational health practice. So the more people that can get used to, finding a sauna close to them and getting in it at least 3 times a week, I think the healthier we'll be.
Do you like barrel or infrared?
Either one is fine. I prefer like a real sauna, like a barrel sauna. But I have an infrared at home from Sunlight, in which they make amazing infrared saunas, and it works really well. And you also have the benefit of that added red light therapy at the same time. What
are the difference between, and my dad always asked me this, what's the difference between the barrel and the infrared benefits wise?
So the barrel sauna is going to get hotter, okay? The infrared sauna creates what's called internal heat by the infrared wavelength of light stimulating mitochondrial energy production, all right? And so the idea with infrared is you also have light therapy combined with sauna therapy, the heat. Barrel, you're just going to get a hotter sauna. Now, all the studies that were done on sauna, preventing cardiac disease and being a health benefit, were all done with just pure heat saunas, not infrared. So we have really good research around that. But, I think they're both very useful.
Are you into red light therapy?
Yeah, I am.
What are the benefits of that?
So red light therapy is a mitochondrial activator. It also helps you release what's called nitric oxide from your cells. And nitric oxide is kind of a miracle compound that increases blood flow throughout your body. And also the other benefit is it increases your collagen production as well. So you have better
increases
skin.
Blood flow. You lay on that butt naked every morning.
I lay on, I lay on one of those beds for a long time.
That's good.
And we just did a whole episode on red light therapy if you guys haven't checked it out recently. You've spoken personally about reversing Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. I had a grandmother who passed from this, and this touches many people's lives. And, everybody at least knows somebody who knows somebody that this is a big issue. Can you talk to us about that?
Right. So first of all, I will say that sadly, the rate of people getting Alzheimer's is going up, and it really shouldn't be that way. I think a lot of people feel that Alzheimer's is something they're genetically predisposed to, and if they're going to get it, they're going to get it. And nothing could be further from the truth. There's a very few people that have the gene that 100% of the time leads to Alzheimer's. So even if you have what's called the ApoE4 gene, which you've talked about on the podcast before, even if you have 2 copies of that, you can prevent getting Alzheimer's. And so,
that's good for people to know.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go back to metabolic disease again. Metabolic disease, once again, having that leads to an increased rate of having Alzheimer's disease. Inflammation does as well. Also just not using your brain. You know, I hate to say it, like a lot of people retire and that's when you see a steep decline, right?
Yeah, my grandmother, in her case, she retired, typical 65 retire. And then, you know, probably around the time she was 70, she was diagnosed. And then literally like the worst thing about that situation was she lived to like 93, she lived a long time with it. And but it was like a fourth of her life is just not being the person who she was. It's brutal.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, it shouldn't be that way. You know, I mean, it shouldn't be that way moving forward. And I think if people knew some of the newer technologies that are out there right now, so there's actually a blood test now that can tell us if you're headed towards Alzheimer's. Okay. It's called the Tau 217 blood test. Yeah. And if you have a risk of Alzheimer's, or you feel like you're just cognitively impaired and maybe something's not right, I would highly suggest, you know, looking at this. This blood test just came out 6 months ago. Dr. Dale Bredesen, he wrote the book End of Alzheimer's, which, by the way, if anyone's concerned about Alzheimer's, read The End of Alzheimer's by Dr. Dale Bredesen. It will completely change your mind about it. You can truly reverse Alzheimer's. And now there's therapies that we know work much better than any medication, like plasma exchange therapy is what we're using to slow the rate of progression of Alzheimer's as well.
Well, I think, you know, that's all extremely fascinating. And I think a lot of people are scared about this, especially if it touches their family. But the reason I think it's so important that you mentioned keeping your mind active and doing something is in my grandmother's case, she just stopped. And it was like doing nothing every day, but the same thing over and over. And my dad, who's her son, is like in his 80s and he still works and runs around and he's sharp as a tack. Like he's running, you know what I mean? Like still lifting weights and doing all the things and calling me every day and bugging me about whatever's going on in the world.
I love that.
But the point is like in his particular case, he's super active. He still works. He never retired. He's doing things. And in her case, you know, and so I just think it's important to, like, especially if you have elderly parents or grandparents, like keep them active and keep them doing things.
It's so true. So your brain needs three things. Your brain needs to rest at moments. By rest, I mean, give your brain a break from constant stress by techniques like meditation, breath work. Then your brain also needs to then run. So it needs to stay active, right? So, you know, and activity beyond just doing like crossword puzzles, even though crossword puzzles are helpful, but like learning new things and then talking about them and teaching them to someone else. That's called mental reprocessing. And that cycle is what really keeps a brain healthy, whether you're at risk of Alzheimer's or not. Like there's a study on nuns that was done. It's called the Nun Study. Nuns that continually teach the Bible, they have the lowest risk of Alzheimer's because they're teaching constantly, right? Yeah. And then the last thing is to stay positive. Positivity in all of its many forms, whether it's a gratitude practice or having good social interactions and friends, all of that also keeps your brain healthy. This is all proven.
My dad is doing all these things, but he needs to sleep more. But he is the most positive person I've ever met. So if he's listening, which I know he is,
that's why
he listened to my solo pregnancy episode. So you know he's listening to this one. I'm like, Daddy, you're not pregnant. I have some questions on some cutting edge topics.
Okay.
Ozempic. Give us the doctor's point of view. How do you see this drug developing over the next few years?
So I just got off stage 24 hours ago talking about this at the Integrative Health Symposium. So big picture, I think people should know that Ozempic is not a true drug in how we're traditionally taught to think about drugs. Ozempic is a peptide. A peptide is a compound that our body makes naturally when it's in its highest state of health, okay? So our gut is making GLP-1 peptide all the time to tell our brain that it's not hungry anymore and that we can stop eating. The problem that's occurred is we have this chronic, like countrywide or Western worldwide deficiency of that signaling because of ultra-processed food, because of inflammation, because of pharmaceuticals have wiped out our gut's ability to make GLP-1. So unlike a drug, which is like a chemical made by a pharmaceutical company, GLP-1s are basically peptides that our body makes naturally that the pharmaceutical companies, well, and scientists have figured out how to make, okay? So with that caveat, and the reason I say this is because I feel that the next generation of what's going to save humanity are peptides. I think as we discover more and more peptides and we show the benefit and we replicate our natural body signal for health, we'll be able to reverse many chronic disease and keep people healthier for longer without side effects of drugs. I think GLP-1s, we're going to find more and more that they have many more uses. There are GLP-1 receptors on your immune system cells, on your brain cells. Almost many of the cells in your body have GLP-1 receptors. And we're finding that the activity of activating these receptors is beneficial in many ways, treating sleep apnea, slowing cognitive impairment with Alzheimer's disease. So it's going to be a treatment for Alzheimer's as well in the near future. You're going to hear a lot about it. That all being said, as you can tell, I'm optimistic about this category of medications. I think they're being completely overprescribed and being used in the wrong way. And by that, I mean that people are slinging GLP-1s at everyone that asks for it without appropriate monitoring, without appropriate recommendations on how to mitigate the negative effects of GLP-1s. And that's what's giving them a bad reputation.
What are the ways to mitigate the negative effects?
That's a great question. So I would say the number two or three top negative effects of GLP-1s is number one, when you eat less, you not only lose fat, you lose muscle, right? Because you're not taking in enough protein. And so when you are on a GLP-1, you have to have a protein-focused diet. You have to get enough protein and you have to add strength training to your daily or every other day routine so you can not lose muscle. My patients actually gain muscle while they're on GLP-1. I buy everyone a bioimpedance scale, by the way. That's a scale that sends an electrical signal.
We had a woman come on the show, JJ Virgin, talking about how important those are to use.
I was with JJ yesterday as well.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they're so important. I don't care what your weight is. I want to know what your skeletal muscle mass is. And those scales will tell you what direction you're headed in. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I would say with GLP-1s is people are being taught that they're going to probably be on them forever or they'll gain their weight back. That also is not true. If you have an off-boarding program, which means a plan to get off GLP-1s by reintroducing your body into how to make GLP-1s, you can get them off and get off of them. And you can also be off of them for a very, very long time without gaining the weight back.
Do you need to work with someone like yourself to be able to figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always good to work with a very skilled practitioner when you're on any type of peptide therapy. You shouldn't be just buying it off the internet and just, injecting yourself with no plan. And so all of our patients have like a very rigid plan on what they're going to do while they're on GLP-1s and how they're going to get off GLP-1s. I will say another great benefit of GLP-1s is it reduces people's cravings, not just for food, but also for alcohol. And so we're seeing GLP-1s work really well to get people to stop drinking, It
makes sense because if your insulin levels are out of whack, you're going to be craving alcohol more if you like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is the best brand out of all of them, in your opinion? Because there's tons of brands.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually not. There's actually just two kind of chemical compounds, but they have different names to them. But the chemical compound itself is the same. So you have semaglutide and you have tirzepatide right now.
Okay.
Okay, and all the brands are just different. They just put a different name to them. I like using tirzepatide because it works on two different receptors and not just the GLP receptor. But I will tell you that, so we switch back and forth all the time based on what's working for the patient and what they can afford. Basically.
It sounds like if you're on these drugs, you have to work out and lift weights.
Absolutely.
You have to eat protein and you can't just eat like shit and that even if it's a little shit.
What I tell every single one of my patients, if I prescribe this for you, we're going to use this as an opportunity to change your life.
Right.
And you want to change your life, don't you? Or do you just want to keep eating crap and never working out and just use this as a quick fix? And if they say quick fix, you're not my patient.
I gave you the easy one. We can, we talk about Ozempic and GLP-1s on the show. Now I'm kind of bored with the topic. I'm going to be honest.
it's a bit.
But I'm going to be.
A lot of people are. I know you're bored with the topic, but a lot of people want to know.
But we've covered it, and I think that was one of the.
I like hearing everyone's perspective on it though, because it's funny. Everyone has different vibes on it.
You cannot mess around with pregnancy and a bra. Like I have to have a real comfortable bra. And the bra that I wear is from Skims. Okay. They have a Fits Everybody Scoop bralette. So this is so amazing for every day. I have big boobs and I can't go braless, especially being pregnant. Like it's just a lot. I hate the way that sports bras feel at this point. So this bralette just makes me feel supported during the pregnancy, but it's also so comfortable without feeling suffocated.
And I feel like a lot of bras are just, I don't know, cutting off the lymphatic system. And this one doesn't do that. They've really designed a bra that does fit everybody and works for everybody. I know so many people that like this bra. It's really like my go-to pregnancy bra. They also have a brief that goes with it. So if you're looking for something really comfortable, they have it in every color. This one is nice, and I've been wearing this one during pregnancy too. I go on the Skims site, and before you know it, I've bought bathing suits. I've bought like a fold-over pant. The other day, I even bought some t-shirts from them. Everything is just flattering. It holds you in, and it's also comfortable, which is really important to me. I have been raving about Skims on my Instagram stories, and during pregnancy, they have been the best. From the leggings to the shirts to the long sleeve shirts to even the bodysuits. If you cannot find a bra that's comfortable, you've got to try that Fits Everybody Scoop bralette. Shop Skims Best Intimates, including the Fits Everybody collection and more at skims.com and Skims stores. After you place the order, be sure to let them know we sent you. Select podcast in the survey and be sure to select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Check out Skims Best Intimates, including the Fits Everybody collection and more at skims.com/skinny. If you've been following along on the show, you know we just had an expert come on and talk about the benefits of a fasting mimicking diet. It's truly revolutionary. I was blown away by the information that he was telling us about fasting. And I think when you're going to do a fast, you want to do it right, which is why I really like Prolon. I've done it a couple times and I've had the best experience. Obviously, I have to wait until after I'm pregnant, but afterwards, I definitely want to explore this because I could not believe how Prolon can help support healthy blood sugar, enhance skin appearance, fat loss, and improve your energy post-fast. It's wild. So it's a 5-day program. It starts with snacks, soups, and beverages, and they're all designed to keep your body in a fasting state. There's no guesswork or planning, so you don't have to be stressed that you're not doing it right. Prolong's fasting mimicking diet is revolutionary. It's plant-based nutrition that nourishes your body while making cells believe they're fasting. It's really interesting, all the information that's coming out about fasting. You guys definitely have to check it out. If you want something with a clear plan with specific daily needs, look up Prolong. You will not be sorry. To help kickstart a health plan that truly works, Prolong is offering the Skinny Confidential listeners 15% off site-wide plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day nutrition program. Just visit prolonlife.com/skinny. That's PROLONLIFE.com/skinny to claim your 15% off discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/skinny. And definitely check out that fasting episode so you can get the whole 411 on all things fasting. That's prolonlife.com/skinny.
So I buttered you up with the easier one to give you a harder one now.
Lay 'em on me.
Okay. Long COVID.
Yeah.
There's a debate going online. I'm sure you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it long COVID? Is long COVID real? Or is it potentially a vaccine injury?
Look, I mean, I suffered with this myself for a long time after I got vaccinated, and so I think whether it's a vaccine injury or the COVID itself, it's the same mechanism. It's a spike protein, which we were giving people the mRNA to make the spike protein, right? So it's that same mechanism. The spike protein is in our biology now, whether we like it or not, either through the vaccine or through actually having COVID. For me personally, it caused my HRV to plummet and my heart rate to be constantly and consistently elevated for 2 years.
Oh,
yeah, it was terrible.
Do you regret getting the vaccine?
I mean, I would say personally, like for me, yes. I think there's some people that should have got the vaccine, people that are high risk for getting COVID and dying from it, but that wasn't as many people as we gave the vaccine to.
So let me ask you this. You're the perfect person to ask this. Say another pandemic happens and they're like, you have to get this vaccine right away. Get it right now. What would you do now, knowing what you know?
I would definitely question that. I don't think anyone should say you have to do anything, and it should be your choice whether you get the vaccine or not. And I think our government learned that this time around. I hope they learned that. But
did they?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. The public learned it. The public's not going to do it. There'll be a revolt the next time we get a vaccine shoved down our throat. But I mean, if people are dying and people will definitely, the next pandemic, if people are dying at a very high rate and people that are super healthy, and then you see other people getting the vaccine and not dying, you're going to make your own decision based on that.
So it's situational.
Yeah,
it's situational, but we didn't see that with COVID, right? We saw a bunch of people get the vaccine and they were not sick to begin with, and they were not sick after until they got the vaccine. And
Wild.
So,
Yeah,
right.
and the reason I asked this again is like, this is not my field of expertise, but I watch what's going on and I, pay attention to what's in the world. And, personally, I've had COVID and, the what we say now is like, whatever's going on the last 4 or 5 years, every time I get sick, it's like nothing else that I've ever had. Like, I mean, this last one, to me, when we got sick, I felt like it was one where if you pushed it a little too hard, like even me who's in good health, like this was something that like, if you weren't careful, you could end up in the hospital. Like, it was so bad.
I told him when we got this virus from the hospital, I had it first. It was probably from the fecal matter pieces that were coming out of the door. But I told him, I was like, do not get what I have. This is different. This is something else. This is a different strain. But I'm asking, when you got it, you agreed.
No, it's terrible. But so I guess what I'm asking are these effects from quote unquote long COVID, is this because of the spike protein? Is this immune suppression? Like, why now do we have these kind of flus and sicknesses that we were able to deal with maybe more effectively in the past, just like wreaking havoc on people?
I think it's all three of those. And so, I think, at this conference I was just at, the Integrative Health Symposium, there's some extremely smart doctors there. And it's the general consensus is that it's a combination of all of those. There's something is definitely different. People are getting sicker. They're getting sicker more easily, and they're staying sicker for longer, right? And it's not explainable. And so we don't know. We don't know what the answer is.
Don't you think it's because they kept everyone inside, which made our immune system weak? So then when we get outside and we're exposed to all these things, we get sicker faster and quicker and harder.
Well, I mean, definitely we know that protecting yourself from normal daily exposure that humans have been doing for millennia is not a good idea. This is why the whole peanut allergy thing happened, right? Like you take peanuts away from kids at a young age, there's a much higher chance they're going to get an allergy to it, right? It's the same thing. And so, yes, I mean, I think the more we keep ourselves in sterile environments and not having our normal interactions, it will definitely lead to more sickness in the future. I don't think that's the only thing that's going on, though. Sure. I definitely think there's other factors that occurred with with COVID and also the vaccinations that play into this.
Well, is it weird that I eat a spoonful of peanut butter when my baby's like 3 weeks old and give him a kiss?
No, not at all.
On
You're
purpose?
supposed to be doing that.
That's what Michael like thought I was crazy to do that, but I ate peanut butter and then I was
I used to think, but again, it's because you're people, and myself included, you're just uninformed and you see peanut allergies exploding.
I did this with honey too. I ate raw honey and I would kiss my kids right after I ate it. It's a little strain. Well, it's a little, what'd you call the thing in the arm?
Well, anyways.
So what's it called?
The glucose one.
But what's the little thing that's in it?
The CGM.
No, but you called it a name, the little thin thing.
A filament.
It's a filament of honey.
But why I like doing this show and why we've done it for so long is I think part of the problem when it came to information around just COVID in general was it was delivered from a few large platforms in a uniform way, in small sound bites, and without a lot of information. So what it did was it created this situation where people felt pressure and stress and fear, and they, and you weren't able to question and have conversations. And I remember doing the show at that period of time. Yeah. And if you even talked about this kind of thing, like people were calling for your head. But I think now, like, this show in particular is an exploration with people like yourself to try to decipher the information and get as much information out there to people so they can make informed decisions.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I think that's the biggest thing. Is like, is it long COVID? Is it vaccine injury? We don't know, but the discussion needs to take place, and the people that can figure it out need to figure it out so that people can at least know what to do, which brings me to my next point. If you are worried that you have a vaccine injury, or you're worried that you have long COVID, or you're having immune suppression and you're sick, what are things that you're telling your patients to do now? Yeah.
So, we have to get down to the root cause of why what is happening. And for what I see is for all my patients, there's different reasons. Some people have tons of inflammation happening. Some people, like I mentioned, have gut dysbiosis. Some people have, mold, believe it or not, leading to these types of symptoms. And so we do a deep biomarker evaluation, and we're measuring over 1,000 different biomarkers in our patients, including levels of different toxins, inflammation, et cetera. And we're trying to figure out like where we should aim our therapies if someone is not feeling good. Yeah.
What is your opinion on stem cells? I'm hearing a lot of behind the scene talk about people going to Mexico. I'm hearing one of my friends is injecting it in his penis. You knew I was talking about?
I know. Yeah.
Edit that part out. Edit his name out.
Edit his name out. But you can keep in edit his name out. Yeah, people can deduct
edit his name out.
You can beep it, Carson. Do we need to be injecting stem cells in our penis?
Look, stem cells will eventually be, I think, a mainstay of treatment for humans, but we don't know where it can be potentially very useful, where it's not useful at all, and what the dose is, and how do we individualize therapy for individuals. So there's still a lot of research that needs to be done. I'm a fan of stem cells. I use stem cells personally. I think you have to be extraordinarily careful of how these are sourced, okay? Because remember, when you're getting stem cells at any stem cell clinic, they're either coming from your own body, it's called autologous, or they're coming from someone else's body. Just like anything that's coming from someone else's body, you have to, number one, make sure it's compatible with you. Number two, make sure that it's tissue. It's not, there's nothing else living in there, right? Any viruses or bacteria or anything in this tissue. But
you're also getting their energy. That's woo.
And that's also true as well.
I don't know about that. That doesn't sit right with me. When you do them, do you do your own?
I don't do my own, no, because I have old stem cells, right? So I'm over 50 and my stem cells are now considered in the old category, so they're probably not very effective. So I like to use what's called umbilical mesenchymal cells. So these are stem cells that are derived from umbilical cords, okay, that are donated. And they're very thoroughly tested, made in the United States of America under very strict manufacturing conditions. Going to Mexico, what they're doing is they are taking stem cells, they're putting them into petri dishes and growing. There are some clinics that do it right. There are some clinics that aren't as careful. And so you have to be extremely careful where you're getting
Where are you injecting the stem cells when you get it?
So, right now, stem cells are being injected into joints. Some people are doing them intravenously. So that's the only places right now, not penises or not a back or anything like that for me. I don't do this. I personally don't do those type of therapies.
Okay.
Yeah. But there are
that disclaimer. It wasn't him we were talking about.
Yeah, no, you can just beep out the name. Okay, so I want to do rapid fire questions for you.
All right, let's do them.
You're the perfect person. Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
Your go-to longevity boosting supplement.
Can I answer two or three?
Sure.
Yeah. I really love urolithin A. There's a company called Timeline that makes urolithin.
I've been taking that. I'm on my day. I've been taking it for 60 days now.
Mark Hyman likes this too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, urolithin A is a game changer, I think. This is a compound that increases the number of mitochondria you have and how efficacious they are. We all need mitochondria to make energy for every cell in our body. So I'm a big believer in urolithin A. The next one is, we all know about NAD, but a specific form called nicotinamide riboside, NR. There's a company called True Niagen that makes NR.
I've heard another person.
Excellent, because NR is more readily absorbed into the cell, and you can make a good amount of NAD from it. Then there's also a supplement that I'm looking into right now. I haven't started taking it yet, but I think I'm for sure going to. It's called Stem Regen. This is a supplement that uses plant compounds to increase the number of stem cells that your body is producing. And I really like kind of what they're doing. You
would like this brand that we just had the founder on called Fatty 15.
Oh, I love Fatty 15.
It's a good one, right?
Yep.
I've been taking it. I really like it. It's better. It's even better than omega-3, which I love.
For the how do you say it?
Urolithin A.
Urolithin A. Sorry. Okay. For that one, I've just started taking it. I'm on like days. I've done 2 bottles of it. And I was reading that it says they want you to take it for like 3 months. What effects have you noticed, and do you think people will notice
I mean, all the research shows that you will increase the number of mitochondria and you'll increase your ATP production and also the efficacy of your mitochondria.
So just more energy function.
Yeah, more energy. But more energy manifests itself in different ways. Like you feel more energetic, but also when your liver has more energy, it can detox better. When your muscles have more energy, they can gain more strength. When your eyes have more energy, you can see better. So energy, for every cell in our body is being used to perform different functions. So you just upgrade yourself completely, all of your biology.
You know what's so funny about that brand? I think we worked with them for a minute, but it was before I was personally able to it was when they were first coming out. And so I want to get them back on the show because I want them to come talk about what they're doing.
Yeah.
So because I think it's really interesting because there's a lot of people talking about that product now.
I can definitely help you make that connection because I know the founders and everything.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting because there's a lot of people that we talk to on the show, and after I'm like, what are the things you're doing? And a lot of people are starting to say that they really like that stuff.
Yeah.
What about for pregnancy? What supplement would you recommend?
I think for pregnancy, I'm a big believer of during your pregnancy, even before you get pregnant, you want to be as careful as possible with everything you put in your body. So, there's a lot of great supplements. There's a supplement called Renatal out there that is specifically made for pregnancy for men and women to take during pregnancy. Yes.
Yeah, gotta call the men out. All you men that are sitting in the corner not talking about your fertility.
But what do I do? Once she's already pregnant or before she's pregnant?
No, he's saying before.
Yeah.
For your semen.
Yeah, your Y chromosome. You have to make sure it's super healthy.
I was like, what are you doing? I was like, right now I should be doing something.
Get your semen strong.
Yeah. But yeah, so really just coming down to the bare essentials, but I would look into that Renatal supplement.
Okay. Yeah. Biggest mistake people make when trying to optimize their health?
I think people go down the long tail of devices and they buy things and they sign up for things when they haven't addressed the root causes, And so if you are unfamiliar with the root causes, like we talked about a couple of them today, get really, really familiar with them. So number one, what they are, number two, how to measure them, and number three, how to affect them. And so once you know those three things, that's what's going to make all the difference in your health. You don't have to buy anything to do that. You don't have to spend a lot of money.
One book everyone should read on longevity.
Oh, there's not just one. There's so many.
Give us a couple.
Okay,
so you can do like 3 to 5.
Yeah, okay. I would say, let me start with Food by Dr. Mark Hyman. I feel people have become very disconnected from food and how to cook it and what's good food and what's good for your body and what's not. Second, I would recommend, I mentioned Casey Means' book, right? I think that's an incredible book on metabolic health and why it's important. Third, I would recommend a book around optimizing your sleep. So Dr. Michael Bruce has written some great books on sleep. I would say if you're going to do a continuous glucose monitor, there's a book by Jesse and Supe. It's called Glucose Revolution. Awesome book. To change your perspective on the healthcare system, which I think everyone needs to read a little bit about that, because I think we have a big misconception about what our healthcare system is built for and why it is where it is. So there's a book by Marty Makary called Blind Spots. That's awesome read on the healthcare system as well.
Can we pause on that for a second and double click on that?
Sure.
I like to use the word double click. I have been outspoken about being excited when it comes to this administration because of RFK and namely because I think for the first time in a long time, there's an opportunity to move away from sick care and get to the root cause of a lot of these issues. And for people that are worried and, they're thinking this is controversial, what we're doing right now is clearly not working. To your point, our system's overrun, we're overloaded. There's more metabolic conditions and issues that we're facing, daily as a country. And so I've been outspoken and excited about this because I think there's an opportunity to really look at our healthcare system and see what we're doing right and do more of it and see what we're doing wrong and do less of it. Can you talk about your perspective on how people view the current healthcare system and how you think it should work?
I'm so glad you asked me that because this is what I'm dedicating my life to now. So, our current healthcare system was built to treat disasters and emergencies, right? So getting cancer, that's a disaster. Getting hit by a bus, that's an emergency. Having a heart attack, that's an emergency. Our system is fantastic for that. Thank God for that system, the science, the ambulances, the hospitals, the procedures. Thank God we have that system. That system was never built to address chronic disease. It just somehow became the place where you get chronic disease addressed, mainly because of the pharmaceutical companies having medications that they've built for or made for chronic disease management. In reality, we need to reverse chronic disease and prevent ourselves from ever getting there in the first place. So what I've dedicated my life to is creating a new system that's built on reversal of chronic disease and optimizing your health so you never get chronic disease in the first place. Also is built on getting the basics right, nutrition, movement, sleep, of course, and finally being extremely preventative. What I mean by extremely preventative is right now we use what we call preventative medicine or blood tests almost when it's too late, and we only use them to diagnose a disease. I believe that every human should be getting blood tests and other biomarkers measured at the age of 21 onwards, and every 4 to 6 months measuring your blood test and catching the first signs of disease development. And then you can start making changes so you never get the disease in the first place. And so that's a new system. And that's what Next Health is. My clinic system is we focus on how to keep you healthy so you never get chronic disease in the first place. And if you don't get chronic disease, guess what? There's a very low chance you're going to get cancer. Very low chance you're going to have a heart attack. There's a very low chance you'll get Alzheimer's disease. And that will unburden our Western medical system to do what it does best.
Can you make a Next Health urine test, though? You
So
keep
Next
saying
Health
blood
urine
test, and I feel like I'm going to faint every single time.
We do urine tests. So we measure 150 different toxins in your urine.
Okay.
It's an extremely valuable test. There's
Can I do
hormone
that
tests.
one? I'll
She
do
doesn't
the
like
urine.
the blood.
Yeah, I get it. I get
Can
it.
I do the
get it.
urine test?
The blood's valuable though.
Yeah. I mean, you need, to be honest, you need blood, you need urine, you need a blood pressure cuff, you need a bioimpedance scale, you need a wearable device.
Stool sample.
All of these.
Yeah.
What's
When
that?
you
It was just stool sample too.
told
Yes,
me
for
about
total-
the stool
yeah.
sample test you took,
Well, you gotta
I was
listen,
like,
you gotta-
this is a lot of information
I think
that I
you
don't
know
need.
some of this stuff freaks people out, but if you get the information, it's like if somebody's trying to get their finances in order and they never look at their credit card bill and they never look at their bank
Exactly.
account and they just they're like, oh,
Exactly.
I'll just like manifest my way and I'll figure it out. It's like, no, you need the information. You
I
need to know
will
what's going
do
on.
any test besides blood.
Okay, quick
There's
question.
still a lot of tests available for you.
Before we jump off of this healthcare issue, you're a doctor that seems to be bought into obviously this way of life that we're all bought into. Why are some doctors so resistant to the change?
I don't think they're necessarily resistant to the change. I think they are resistant to finding interventions that work that don't have a ton of randomized clinical trials behind them, And so a lot of times when I talk to a physician about what we're doing, the first thing they say to me in retort is, show me the evidence that keto works, right? And obviously there's a lot of evidence on keto working for certain conditions. Like, I use it as an intervention. It's not my main dietary program, but I use it for some people. And then I show them the research on that. And they're like, this is not enough research. We need more research on this diet. Like, what else do you need except like the 150 people that, their depression is now gone from doing keto, or, they've lowered the symptoms of schizophrenia. Like that's enough evidence, because changing your dietary pattern doesn't cause, for most people, an immediate complication, right? And so I think there's this mentality that we are taught in medical school, and this stems back to the Flexner report that was funded by the Rockefellers to basically blow up the pharmaceutical industry back in the 40s. The Flexner report is this report that was commissioned that made it so that the only medicine that doctors could learn was that which was based on scientific evidence, basically randomized controlled trials. And so when you do these trials, you can only study one medication at a time. So that's why we have this giant pharmaceutical industry. Well, guess what? Doctors are still being taught that. They're still being taught that unless there's a randomized controlled trial that shows that this is efficacious, I don't want to believe it.
I think there has to be some kind of intuitive aspect to it, though, too, which 100%. Is so crazy. I can imagine, though, being a doctor and being 26 years old and having to go to medical school for, you said 8 years, and getting there and then having someone come and poke holes in what you're doing. That's very frustrating to have worked so hard
I got news
Like-
for you. You know, it's also frustrating when you run a business for years and years and years, and then the market changes, and you have to. Like, it's just like doctors can cry about
I'm
this.
just
Lawyers
having
can.
empathy.
No, but I know. But here's the thing.
But you're lucky that you did it when you're so lucky that you did it when you were 15 years old.
But
You're a unique case.
We were talking about some of these legacy media companies and how they weren't able to pivot. And guess what? Those reporters and those journalists and those anchors on those platforms were angry about the change that started to take place. And so they resisted it and they demonized it and they attacked it. And now they're going out of business. And the point is like the correlation to doctors is like, yes, new information presents itself, new ways of life present themselves. You have to pivot. You can't just be like, I went to school and I studied this and I was taught this, so I don't change. You know what I'm saying? Like every business, every individual needs to pivot and adapt with the times. And, you know, to me, like when they would say things like trust the science, I'm like, science is ever evolving. That's the whole point and definition of science.
Exactly.
But do you get what I'm saying? Is like, I understand that people can feel personally attacked or feel like their work's being diminished.
What's the other one they said about home? They were like, what's the home
but it's
quote
the
about
same,
COVID?
but
Like,
listen,
stay home.
It's the same thing with journalists that are mad that platforms have changed.
We were just talking about this.
It's
right?
like you could be mad all you want, but it's changed. You have to evolve with the times.
Exactly. You got to evolve with the times. And I think, you know, as a doctor myself, I can say that getting new health information, I never really felt attacked. I just felt like, look, I'm a surgeon. I should be doing surgery, right? And so let me just go to the operating room and do what I do. You know, I think cancer doctors, same thing. Like, you know, let me treat the cancer. I think when you challenge a doctor with health advice, something that you've never really been taught in medical school, something that you're never really been, you know, taught to talk about with patients, I think you kind of get a little unsteady because now you're being asked to be an expert in something that you're not an expert in, right? But you're expected for some reason because you have the MD degree to be an expert in it.
Well, that's why I think it's so important what we talked about earlier is I don't think it's fair to doctors who don't have that form of education to be put in a position where but I also think more doctors could also be forthright in saying, I actually don't know about the nutrition or I don't know about that. You know what I mean? Like if somebody comes to me about an area of business that I have no clue on, I don't just be like, well, I did a business one time, so I know everything. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things where I have to be like, I just don't know.
Absolutely. And it just like you said, like if you run one type of business, that doesn't mean that you know all about all the other businesses, right? So just because you're, you know, a cancer doctor doesn't mean you know about nutrition.
I can't jump into Next Health and run your business right now. There's no way. I'd be like, I wouldn't know the first thing to do.
If people want to come to Next Health, where can they find you and seek you out? Your Instagram, give us all the things.
Yeah, so next-health.com is where you can find our clinics. If you want to learn about biomarkers, I actually have a page on my website called drshah.com is my website /biomarkers. And you can learn about some of the biomarkers we talked about today. And you can download a guide to your own biomarkers. And then I'm on social media at Darshan Shah MD. Yeah.
That episode was packed with value. Thank you so much for coming on. Come back anytime.
Thank you.
We could have gone on with you over like on and on and on.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about, right? But I love it. I love your questions. Like we hit on everything.
Him and her.
Yeah, him and her.
Thanks for coming
Let's
on.
talk about Ozempic again. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you.